Well, let's jump in today. Like we said, we're finishing off a series today, and I have a fun question. We are going to have so much fun in the beginning of this, and then we'll have a reflective time at the end. That's the way we do it, right? But hey, what kind of people do you guys follow? Like, I know not everybody's on social media. I get it. But I follow a few people on Instagram. Can I share you a few? And then you guys can, I have some questions for you to consider. But I follow a guy named Nate Bargatze. Anybody know Nate Bargatze? Nobody. Okay. He's a really clean, family fun comedian. My wife and I went to see him live. I'd never gone to see a comedy show ever in my life until last December, and we went to see him live, and I am sold. He has a new movie coming out. This is free publicity from me. The Breadwinner. It's going to be great. Listen, the reason why I follow Nate Bargatze is because I wish I were that funny. You know how you watch somebody like, man, I wish I could make jokes like that, and I can't, but that's why I follow him. I also follow a guy named Steve Magnus. I love Steve Magnus. I really don't know much about him, but the stuff he posts on Instagram about what your brain is doing when things are going bad and what your brain is doing when you're doing a hard workout or what your brain is doing when you hear criticism is fascinating. And it helps me be like really, really a lot better in the way I think about myself throughout the week. I love Steve Magnus. But honestly, the first two people I follow from a very large distance. Like, I realize I'm probably not going to be a comedian like Nate Bargatze. And I don't try to be like him at all. And Steve Magnus, I'm never going to be able to do the things that he talks about some of the athletes that he coaches do. And that's the point. I follow from a distance. For this next guy, I actually try to do things he does. His name is James Hoffman. He's a British guy. He won the Barista Championship twice for making coffee. And listen, I love making coffee at home the right way. And I know you guys think your coffee's good. It's not. All right? I don't know what you get. I don't care where it is. It's not good. All right, I can show you how to make great coffee. Me and James Hoffman share a lot of great tips anytime you want to see. But seriously, think about the people you follow. Think about why you start to follow them, right? It's not a bad reason you start to follow the people you follow, right? You have this thing in you that's like, oh my gosh, they might have something fun. They might have something interesting. I know some of you probably finance people. You follow financial gurus and budgeting experts and what blah, 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 blah. And you learn about how to manage your money. Great for you. Some of you, you follow fashionistas because you love looking a certain way and you like that look. And maybe it's about the way you want your living room to look. And so you follow people who are good at interior design. I don't know why you look, but let's just be honest with ourselves. We follow people because they seem to have something that we want. And they actually are maybe giving us a way to get something we didn't think we could have. Like, I didn't think it was possible to have such a good cup of coffee until I started watching this guy on YouTube. And I was like, I can do that at home. And that's not that hard. And I can convince my wife to let me buy that so I can do better, right? You start to see, and listen, I think we follow people so closely. Even listen, you may even follow people that are real life in your life. And you follow them because you think they'll unlock something for you in your life that'll make it better. That's not a bad thing. Listen, I want to say this as a vote of confidence. We are a following culture. And that's not a bad thing. Being a following culture means that we don't think we have it all figured out. We're not just trying to do it all on our own, that we actually want the help of other people to help us get the things that we think are missing in our life. And this is exactly why we're finishing off this series, Discovering Jesus. For the last several weeks, we've been trying to figure out, looking and seeing, how do we know and why do we follow this guy named Jesus? And listen, if you're not a believer, if you're not sure you believe that Jesus died and rose again, I get that. We are happy you're here to explore. But listen, if you've been doing this a while and you've never really asked the question, why do I follow Jesus? Today is the day I want you to ask that question. Because we've been looking, remember, our central question for the whole series has been this. Because if Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John are reliable accounts of actual events, if even one of those four biographical accounts of Jesus' life are real, then you've got to take Jesus seriously. You've got to take following Jesus seriously, because the things that talks about happening and the things he said, the things he did, are hard to ignore. And if you call yourself a follower of Jesus, the thing I want you to think about this morning is, why are you not going all in following Jesus? What's keeping you from going all in as a follower of Jesus? Because here's what I know about, listen, I'm not even talking to those of you who are not following Jesus yet. I'm just talking to those of us who call ourselves Jesus followers. Do you not find that sometimes you run into things that you see that Jesus taught people to do and you go, ain't no way? Right? Don't you sometimes look at some of the things Jesus taught and the things he did and be like, I don't know how to do. I do. Guys, listen, this is the big question for those of us who follow Jesus, because if this is a true story, and we've been looking at the story of Luke, and if he tried to verify the history of the people who went where, and he tried to find the eyewitnesses, and then he put this letter out, this account of Jesus' life out, and let it go around, and there were people who'd been there, done that, and they saw what Luke wrote, and they could go verify it. There's something to this story. And if there's something to this story that is that true, that means for those of us who follow Jesus, to not go all in means that there must be some reason why you don't think Jesus wants what's best for you. But you follow all kinds of people on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and in real life. You follow all kinds of people who you hope are going to make your life better, and you watch them from afar. But what happens when you start trying to step close into their world and do what they're doing and live the life they're living? Right? It's the same thing when we talk about Jesus. And listen, for those of you who are exploring Jesus this morning, I'm going to give you what I believe is one of the most maybe convincing arguments for why Jesus is actually worth following, not just admiring, because there is a difference. I think a lot of people in the room, even if wouldn't call yourself a believer, I think you would say that you admire Jesus. Who doesn't admire a man who comes and gives power to the poor, who empowers them and pulls them up to a status that says you're valuable and worthy? Who doesn't admire a man who stands in the face of power and says, no, you got to stop that. This is the way you should be treating people? Who doesn't admire the kind of leader who pulls together a group of people and says, I'm gonna love you and care for you and show you the right way, instead of like trying to lord it over them and make them do what he said? You're going to do it or else. There was no or else. Jesus said, listen, I'll do the or else part. You just follow me. Who doesn't admire that kind of person in our world? I think we'd all say, listen, if you're here this morning, I would guess that you'd at least look at Jesus in some sort of admirable way, like there's something about him that's attractive, or at least about his way of life that's attractive, or at least about what he's taught is attractive. But what does it take to go from admiring to following? Well, following is a very different thing. I admire Nate Bargatze, but I do not want to be in front of 30,000 people trying to tell jokes for an hour. That's not going to go well for me. I got 1 or 2 per Sunday. And that one didn't even work. Okay, we'll try that again. Right? So listen, but if I tried to follow Jim Hoffman, I try to do what he does with coffee beans. I try to save my beans in a certain way, the way he says that they'll stay fresh for a long time. I try to get the right kind of grinder so it can grind the right size, because if it's not the right size, the water can't infiltrate it. I don't understand the chemistry. I just know what he tells me to do, and then I do it, and it works. So listen, if you've never thought about going all in Jesus, let me just say, the end of his life is fascinating when you think about what he did while dying. And Luke records Jesus' death. Now listen, I know you know the story, but listen, he was put on trial. And here he is. They've said, you're going to be crucified. He goes to the cross, which is, this is where we get the word excruciating. It's the same word. To be put on a cross is excruciating. It's more pain than you can imagine, right? And here in this moment, I want to show you what's going on. And so Luke 23 says this. And when they came to the place they called the skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals. In other words, we know he's not really a criminal. Jesus claimed to be a king, which the Jewish leaders didn't like. And remember, the Jewish leaders brought him in front of Pilate and said, he claims to be a king. Now, listen, the Jewish leaders did not like the emperor of Rome. They didn't want Rome to be in Jerusalem. They didn't want him in Israel. They didn't want them around. But when it served their purposes, they called Jesus out for saying he was going to be a king. But Jesus, listen, as a king, Jesus never got together an army. He never talked about taking over the Romans. And he never once pushed for the Romans to leave. In fact, he told one guy, well, you should give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but you should give to God what is God. In other words, pay your taxes that Caesar, fine. You do what Caesar says, but you do what God says too. So Jesus never committed a crime, but he's killed alongside criminals. And while he's in that point, Jesus said, stop. You're dying for a crime you didn't commit among criminals. And the people who put you there are standing in front of you. I can't even say out loud what I would say. Can you? Let's just be real honest for a second. What would you say to the people who put you there while you died? What would you want to say most of all? This is the moment. And by the way, this is that moment that you in your head think that you'll be able to do what is right. And here's what Jesus said. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. I'm not forgiving anybody. Just to be honest. I haven't been put to death, obviously. But I've had people lie about me. I've had people cheat me. I've had people talk behind my back and I found out about it. And I didn't say this. Have I got your attention fully? Listen, this is why I wanted you to think about this moment. Because Jesus did everything he taught his followers to do. He did not waver from the thing he taught his followers to do. And you know what's going on around him as he's forgiving them? It's not just that he's dying. Do you know what Luke records what's going on in this moment when Jesus says this? Here's what's going on. It says, and they divided up his clothes by casting lots. They're gambling to see who gets his garments. So he's watching these soldiers who put him on the cross. They're just having a nice little game to figure out who gets his clothing. And not only that, the people, they stood there watching, and the rulers were even sneering at him. I love the word sneer. Have you ever sneered at somebody? I don't even know. I'm not even sure if my face can do it. Everybody watch the screens real quick. Right? I can't sneer. Like, you got to be really angry, and I'm not angry enough at you guys to really sneer. I'm sure I have a sneer. Listen, Matt Johnson's got a great sneer. Few of you have seen it, but I have seen it. And it is, this is right, like that facial expression. This is real stuff. Jesus is looking at these faces. He's watching this all happen. He still says, Father, forgive them. Not only that, here's what they're saying about him. They're sneering at him, and they said, well, he saved others. Let him save himself if he's God Messiah, the chosen one, knowing they're the ones that put him there. And they're like, hey, well, if you've got so much power, just come on down, save yourself. Listen, not only the people who put him there are saying that. This is fascinating to me. Luke records that one of the criminals that are hanging there with him, they hurled insults at him. Like, how angry do you have to be to yell at the guy dying next to you? Like, dude, aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. If you got power, do something. Do something to help me. Isn't this unbelievable in this moment? For Jesus to even utter the words, Father, forgive them? Golly, that takes a lot of strength. That takes a lot of love. And this is what I can't get. This is what I'm trying to wrap my mind around as a follower of Jesus. I also have to have that much love for my enemies. Because in Luke chapter 6, the same guy who wrote this, he recorded Jesus teaching something that is connected to this end-of-life moment for Jesus. Luke recorded this. Jesus said, but love your enemies. Do good to them and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. And he did it. It wasn't just that he talked about it like it's a good idea. Hey, I tell you what a good idea would be. You should treat your enemies like you love them, and you should do good to them. I'm not ever going to do it, though. Like, this is the moment that listen, when I think about why that I follow Jesus, I not only follow him because his death and resurrection saved me, one, but two, do you realize that everything Jesus taught his followers to do, he actually did full integrity. There was no moment where Jesus did not do what he asked his own followers to do. That is unbelievable. So listen, if you've ever had doubts about going all in, let me just say this outright. Jesus is worth following because he did everything he said he would do. He said he was going to die for the sins of all the world, and he did it. He said he was going to create a new kingdom, and he did it by coming back to life. He said that he would love his enemies, and he did. At the very end, he did what none of us would have been able to do. So listen, if you're questioning, how do I go in? Because let me ask again the question, what's really keeping you from going all in to follow Jesus? Because here's what I know. Every one of us who follow Jesus, there's something sometimes that we just want to hold on to more than we want to hold on to what Jesus taught. And I don't know what that is for you. I mean, I can give some examples here this morning, but I'm not going to give any here. Because I don't know what it is for you that you struggle to do that Jesus told you to do because you're holding on to something. And maybe you're looking at it going, there's no way this is actually going to give me the happiness or the peace or the joy or the fulfillment or the purpose or the meaning this other stuff might give me. And maybe for you, it's just like a simple trade. Like you admire what Jesus is telling you to do, and you're like, man, that would be awesome. But I'm not sure if I do that, I'll get what I actually need most in my life. But that's the trade, isn't it? That's the thing you do every time you watch that favorite person on Instagram, isn't it? Isn't it the same thing you do when you sit down with somebody that you really respect and you ask for their advice and they tell you the thing that you don't know? Man, but I don't want to hear that part. Let me go to somebody else to get advice from. But the person who looks at you and goes, man, if you'll do this and this and this, I know it may be hard at first, but it's going to end up giving you what you want in the long run. This is the choice we make. We have to go from admiring to following with Jesus. So let me set you at ease a little bit. Because I know there's something on your minds. Some of you in the room are struggling with something. You're like, I'm not sure. Well, let me put you at ease this morning. Jesus doesn't ask you to follow by taking a jump. He just asks you to follow step by step. You can't follow anybody. Listen, I'm pretty good at making coffee. But my wife will tell you, I've been making coffee at home and tweaking what I do for over 2 years. And I'm still not ready to make it for anybody else that often. Now, I do for a few people. But listen, I have to take steps, little bitty steps. Like, guys, I don't even have a good grinder yet. I really can't get the grind size I need. You know how annoying that is? Please tell her I need a grinder. Right? Listen, it's step by step. I didn't know 2 years ago when I started how important the temperature of the water was. I didn't know. So I bought a thermometer so I could stick it in and I could start testing. And then now I know exactly how long to put it in the microwave to get the kind of temperature I want, to get the kind of results I want out of my coffee. It was step by step by step. But if I hadn't taken the first step, I wouldn't have gotten to step 12. You see what I'm saying? Like Jesus looks at us and he says, I want you to follow me. And we all go, there's no way I'll ever be able to forgive my enemies. And he goes, well, can you start with not gossiping? Can you start with praying? He asks us to take little steps. Listen, I don't know what steps you need to take that you are looking at going, there's no way, there's no way, there's no way. And Jesus just goes, whoa. I'm with you. Just follow me step by step by step. Because here's what I know that's true about this whole following process. The benefit of following is in what you do, not what you admire and think about. This is the big kicker. I think a lot of us who follow Jesus believe that if I admire Jesus well enough, I'll get there. And that's not the way it works. I have never admired anybody more than Nate Bargatze in terms of being funny. He can do it without being off color, off-putting, or mean. I don't know how he does it. My best comedy moments are when I'm being mean to somebody. I'll just be honest with you. Ask any of the people I work with. I am so good when it comes to cutting people down in sarcasm. It is so fun, right? But I can't admire my way to where Nate Bargatze is. I'd have to change the way I say things. I'd have to change the way I do things. The same is true for my following Jesus. I can't admire Jesus and say I'm following him because I will not get the benefits of following. Let me give you some clear examples, okay? Some of you are unsure about serving somewhere on a regular basis because, and I've heard this over and over year for 20 years, I'm just not sure I can commit the time. Because there's other things in my life and I'm busy and I have all this stuff. And I'm just not sure about the time I can commit. I get it. But what if you just committed to one Sunday a month for right now? What if you made the switch from going from I'm not going to serve because I don't know how to, I'm just going to try one out and see how that goes. And here's what you'll find. A lot of people that do this one Sunday, they find they really love it. And then they ask for more. And then they ask for more, and they find their spot with their people, and they don't want to miss. And when they do have to miss, because people miss out around here all the time, and when they do have to miss, it's okay, but they love where they're serving. You know why? Because Jesus said he came to serve, not to be served. And you know what happens when you take the step of serving other people? Do you know what happens? You get the benefit of the serving. Yeah, you give up something, but you get the benefit that you could not have gotten any other way. The same is true for money. I had a conversation with a guy this past week, and he was telling about how he had just not been giving at all, and maybe sporadically. But when he talked about giving on a regular basis over the last few months, he said, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't believe it. I just feel at peace now. He had been trying to find peace by holding on, and he found peace by being generous. You only get the benefit of following Jesus by actually doing the things Jesus said. You don't get the benefit of following by admiring. And let me just land on this, in case it's just not as obvious to you. I don't know what you need to move on, but I promise you, if you trust what Luke said in his account of Jesus' life, and Jesus died, do you know what happens after Jesus forgives those people? He dies, right? They all go about their business. Jesus comes back, and all of those people who thought he was gone, who were his followers, they see it now. Because I don't know if you remember the story of Peter, but remember, Peter he just denied Jesus 3 times. I mean, Jesus is on trial, and Peter is standing there, and they say, hey, Peter, aren't you a part of the crew that was with Jesus? And Peter goes, no, not me. 3 times he denies being a part of Jesus' crew. So he's feeling guilt. And you know what Jesus does for Peter the first time they see each other? He makes him breakfast on the shore. They come in from the fishing boat. He sits down and looks at Peter and says, Peter, hey man, just keep doing what I taught you to do. So listen, you don't even have to be perfect at doing the things Jesus asked you to do. You just have to keep stepping and following and being as obedient as you know how. And that's all Peter did. That's all Paul did. That's all the people that you read about in the Bible, that's all they did. They took step by step by step of faith, and they built up their trust in who Jesus was by following, not by admiring. And for those of you who are not sure you're ready to follow Jesus, let me make one more pitch to you. I think Jesus is a great person to admire from a distance, but he's an even better person to follow. I can't imagine what my life would be like. Not because I'm a pastor and not because I get to stand up here and talk to you guys. I'm saying I'm not sure how I would have made it if I hadn't kept following Jesus, because there were times when I didn't think I would keep doing it. But I cannot imagine what it would be like if I had only admired Jesus from a distance I'd never followed. Because what I have now, the peace I feel, even when things are hard, the love I feel that I'm not sure when I do things that are so hurtful to other people, and when I don't get it right, and those words in my head just keep going, man, you're an idiot. Jared, you're so dumb. You're so hateful. Man, you're never going to get this right. When that starts hitting me, and then I read in Scripture that Jesus loves me, and that He came for me, like to know that He did this for me, and He stood at the cross and forgave the people who killed Him, so He can forgive me too. That is the most powerful thing in my life every single day. As good as you think it is to come and admire Jesus from a distance, let me just invite you in. It's even better when you follow. And yes, it's hard sometimes, and yes, it doesn't make sense sometimes, but the value and the benefit of following Jesus is that you get a full life, a meaningful life, a peaceful life, a joyful life, a loving life, and all the things that you're wanting most in life, you get that and more. Because you get to do it with a whole group of people who are following alongside Him. You're not alone anymore. You're not trying to figure it out on your own, and you're not just following random people on Instagram who really don't know what's good for you. Sorry, did that seem a little harsh? Because, by the way, the people you follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube do not care about your life. They're trying to make money. Nate Bargatze wants to sell a movie. I love following him. I'm going to go to this movie and I'm going to give him my money. That's not a bad thing, but I also know he's selling me stuff all the time. James Hoffman is selling me things he sells to help me make better coffee. He's selling me stuff. It's for his good he does it, not for yours. And Jesus stood there and said at the very end of His life, I'm not coming down, because if I come down, it would only be for my good, not yours. I want to follow a guy like that. I want to follow a guy who's willing to do what's good for me even when it's bad for him. And by golly, it fires me up every day and I'm getting it better. And it's been almost 40 years I've been following Jesus. Actually, it's been longer than that, now that I do the math. And I'm still not getting it right. But I'm getting the benefit of trying to follow Him every single day. And I want you to get the benefit too. So let me pray for you. Father in heaven, it is amazing to know that You love us this much, that You sent Jesus, one, to make sure that we had a way to connect with You. And then two, that He did it in such a way that showed us exactly what the power of love and forgiveness and mercy and grace could do in the lives of people, because it's done it to me. God, thank You for this example and this story from Luke. Thank You for having him research it. Thank You for pushing him to write this story down so we could read it and see that Jesus did everything He said He would do, and that He's worth following, not just because He saves us, but because He's actually the kind of person who wants what's best for us. And God, if You would help us, those of us in this room, God, I know that there are people that aren't ready to give some things over. And I know that there's some things in my life, God, You wish that You could move out of my life. So God, in this moment, would You help us to release a little bit of hold on those things that are holding us back? Would You let us trust You and trust Your way, that when You tell us to do the things You've told us to do and that You actually did, that You're actually wanting what's best for us? Would You help us to trust that in Your heart? And then would You also help us to actually start doing the things You asked us to do? Maybe if it's just small micro steps and baby steps and moving steps, but they're moving steps. They're going toward the place You want us to be, because we know if we can follow Jesus, God, we'll be right in the middle of all the peace and blessing that You can give us. And I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.